My name's Derek Lawson. I'm 44 years old. I live in Austin, and I manage operations at a logistics center just off I-35. My life, until recently, was one of patterns. Predictable, stable, maybe even a little boring. But I didn't mind that. I liked knowing what to expect, especially when it came to my family. I thought my marriage was unshakable. Turns out, it was already cracking beneath my feet. It started on what should have been a good day, our anniversary. 12 years married. I remember standing in line at the florist, thinking, she's gonna love this. I had the tulips, yellow just like our wedding bouquet, and I even booked a table at the little Italian place where we had our first date. Thought it would be romantic. Thought it might bring us back to something we'd lost track of lately. I guess I was already sensing a distance, even if I wasn't ready to admit it. I got home around 4:45, earlier than usual. I wanted it to be a surprise. The house was quiet when I walked in. Not unusual. Emily gets home from the community college around 4:30, and the kids were still at soccer and dance practice. But then I noticed it, her purse on the couch. And next to it, a man's leather jacket. Not one of those fake ones from Target either. This was the real deal. Dark brown, soft-looking, like something out of a menswear ad. I paused in the doorway. My gut did something weird. A kind of tightening I couldn't explain. I called out her name, Emily, but got no answer. That's when I heard the laughter. Came from the backyard. Muffled but familiar. Hers. Light, almost musical. And then his. A man's voice, low and confident. I walked slowly toward the back window, careful not to make the floorboards creak. When I peeked out, I froze. She was sitting out there with a man I'd never seen before. They were on the patio furniture I assembled last spring. The love seat I bought her for Mother's Day, actually. Her legs were curled under her, her shoulder brushing up against his arm like it belonged there. He leaned in close to say something, and she laughed again. Not a nervous laugh, but a warm, easy kind of laugh. The kind I hadn't heard in a while. A half-empty bottle of red wine sat on the table, next to 2 glasses. My heart pounded in my ears. I had that moment of total disorientation, like I had walked into the wrong house. And yet, I didn't rush out there. I didn't scream or throw open the door. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to believe what I saw. Maybe I wanted to give her one last chance to explain it away. Or maybe I just didn't want to see her face when I confronted her. Didn't want to see what kind of lie she might come up with. Instead, I walked back through the house and into the kitchen. I dropped my work bag on the table, loud enough to make a point. The clang echoed through the quiet. A beat passed. Then I heard movement, shuffling. The sliding door opened. Footsteps. And then she appeared in the kitchen doorway, wine glass still in hand, like nothing was wrong. "Hey, babe," she said, all breezy. "You're home early." I said nothing. She smiled wider, a little forced. "That's Steve. Steve from grad school. I told you about him, remember? He's helping me with the charity auction. I meant to mention he was coming by today." I stared at her. I had never heard the name Steve before in my life. "Charity auction," I repeated. "Yeah," she said, shrugging, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "The community center is doing this fundraiser, and I'm on the committee. Steve's helping with the marketing stuff." "Why was he touching your hand?" I asked, keeping my voice even. I wasn't accusing, at least not yet. I was giving her the chance. "The rope." She laughed, like I was being silly. "That's just how he is. He talks with his hands. You know the type. Super animated." I didn't know the type. And more importantly, I didn't know her tone. It wasn't defensive. It was polished, practiced, like she had already thought this through. I nodded. Right? Animated. She leaned in to kiss my cheek, but I turned my head slightly and let it land somewhere between my jaw and ear. Her smile faltered for a second. Just a flicker. "I'll get him going soon," she said, already walking back toward the yard. "He's just wrapping up." I didn't follow. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the wine bottle on the counter. Red blend. The one I always buy for date nights. After a minute, I heard the sliding door open again, and footsteps. 2 sets this time, moving toward the front of the house. She said something in a low voice, and then the front door closed. I stayed in the kitchen, listening to the silence. When she came back in, her smile was back in place. "So," she said, walking up to me, "what's the plan for tonight?" I looked at her for a long time. "I made reservations," I said. "That place we went to after you said yes." Her face changed. Just a little. "Oh, you remembered." "Of course I remembered," I said. "It's our anniversary." She nodded. "Right? Sorry, the day just got away from me." I didn't respond. I grabbed my keys and headed for the car. She followed me, asking if she should change. I told her to do whatever she wanted. That night at the restaurant, we talked about the kids, about work, about everything except what had happened earlier. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was being paranoid, that maybe Steve really was from grad school and maybe he really did just talk with his hands. But when she excused herself to go to the restroom, I caught my reflection in the window. And I didn't see a husband anymore. I saw a man trying not to drown in something he didn't understand yet. That night, as we climbed into bed, she curled up beside me like she always did. But I didn't reach for her. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how long it had been since I actually knew who she was. I didn't say anything. Not that night. Not the next day either. I wasn't ready to face what I suspected. But the crack had opened, and something had already started slipping through. The next morning felt strange. You know that feeling you get when you wake up from a nightmare and, for a few seconds, you're not sure if it was real? That was me. Except there was no relief. No waking up to find everything fine. Just that pit in my stomach from the night before and Emily humming in the kitchen like nothing happened. She was scrambling eggs, pouring orange juice for the kids. I watched her from the hallway for a minute. Her hair was pulled back, she was wearing one of my old t-shirts, and she smiled at our daughter like it was the most ordinary Saturday in the world. Maybe that's what got to me most. The normalcy. I stepped into the kitchen. She looked up and said, "Morning," like she hadn't just been sitting in the backyard with a strange man while I stood inside, wondering if my marriage was collapsing. I muttered a reply and grabbed a mug from the cabinet. I could feel her eyes on me, studying me. Maybe wondering how much I suspected. Or maybe she was just wondering what to say next. But she didn't bring him up. No mention of Steve. No follow-up. Just, "What do you want to do with the kids later?" and "We're low on groceries." I went through the motions that day. Took the kids to the park. We threw a frisbee, stopped for snow cones, laughed a little. But all the while, my brain was playing catch-up. Rewinding the last few months, rewatching scenes I had written off as nothing at the time. There were so many little things. Like how she used to be home by 5 every day like clockwork. And then suddenly, around spring, she started working late. Once a week at first. Then twice. Faculty meetings, she said. Lesson planning. Then it became study groups she was mentoring, a committee she joined, a grant she was writing. I wanted to believe her. I did. She always sounded so passionate about her work. But then I started noticing how her stories didn't always line up. One week it was a meeting, the next she'd say she'd been grading at the cafe. And her phone. Always face down. Always on silent. At first I chalked it up to distraction. She was tired. Overwhelmed. We both were. 2 kids, full-time jobs, bills, we barely had time to sit down together, let alone talk about anything real. But now I wondered, was it distraction or secrecy? There were nights when I woke up and she wasn't next to me. I'd find her in the kitchen, lights off, just standing there, sometimes scrolling through her phone, sometimes staring out the window. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd just say, couldn't sleep, or was thirsty. Then she'd crawl back into bed like nothing happened. And I let her. Every time. I never pushed. That's on me. But the signs were there. One time, back in June, we went to my cousin's barbecue. Emily showed up wearing this new sundress I hadn't seen before. Tight at the waist, floral pattern. I told her she looked beautiful and she smiled, but not at me. Her eyes scanned the backyard before she said thank you. Later that night, when we got home, she smelled different. I remember it clearly now. A scent I didn't wear. Strong and unfamiliar. I asked her about it. She said it must have been from hugging people goodbye. It's probably Sam's cologne, she joked. You know how he goes overboard with that stuff. It made sense. At the time. But now I think about that moment differently. I think about how she laughed it off, how easily the answer came, and how quickly she turned on the TV afterward like a magician pulling off a final trick. Misdirection. The thing is, she was always good at words. That's one of the things I used to love about her. She could talk her way through any situation, always the diplomat, always the one who knew what to say. But now those words felt like smoke. Something designed to cloud, not clarify. The more I looked back, the more the picture came into focus. Like a jigsaw puzzle I've been working on for years, only now I realized the box was showing the wrong image. And it wasn't just me who noticed. Our son, Nate, asked me one evening, why is mom always so tired now? And our daughter, Hannah, who's only 6, told me, mommy gets sad when you're not looking. Those words hit me harder than anything. Because if even the kids felt the shift, then it wasn't in my head. It was real. This wasn't about paranoia, it was about truth. And yet, every time I brought it up, Emily had an answer. Do you really think I'd cheat between diapers and lectures? You know how demanding the end of semester is. You're overthinking again, Derek. It's nothing. But that's the thing about nothing, it doesn't leave wine glasses out. It doesn't put cologne on your clothes. It doesn't show up in backyard laughter when your husband walks through the door early. I started watching her differently. Not with suspicion, but with clarity. Like I'd been asleep for months and finally woke up. I noticed how her mood shifted when her phone buzzed. How she smiled at her screen in a way she hadn't smiled at me in weeks. How she started checking the mirror before leaving the house, even if she was just running errands. And still, I wanted to believe it could all be explained. That maybe I was just burnt out, anxious, connecting dots that weren't really there. But the feeling, the weight in my chest, it didn't go away. It just grew heavier with every lie I let slide. By the end of that week, I started keeping a journal. Not a big deal, just small notes. Things she said, times she came home, names she mentioned. I wasn't trying to be a detective. I was just trying to stay grounded. To remind myself I wasn't crazy. And honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do with any of it. I wasn't ready for a confrontation. I wasn't even sure I was ready to admit the truth to myself. But I knew one thing. If I was right, if she really was hiding something, then I needed to be ready. Because whatever this was, it was no longer just in my head. It was real. It was growing. And I could feel it coming for me. 2 weeks after our anniversary, Emily told me she had a professional development seminar in Houston. 3 days, 2 nights. I didn't think much of it at first, she'd been to conferences before. She packed her tote bag with a few books, her laptop, and a new blouse I hadn't seen before. Said it was required for faculty. All expenses paid, she added, like it was a perk. Like I should be happy for her. Still, something didn't sit right. Maybe it was how she avoided eye contact while zipping up her suitcase. Or how she got unusually quiet the day before she left. Or maybe it was just how easy she made it sound. Like she had rehearsed every sentence ahead of time. Before she left, I offered to drive her to the bus station. She hesitated just for a second, then said she'd take a rideshare. No need for you to waste the gas, she said, pecking me on the cheek. I'll be back before you miss me. That line hit weird. We'd never been the kind of couple, cheesy wasn't our thing. But I just smiled and told her to have fun. The next night, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't even anger. It was something deeper. A pull in my chest that wouldn't let go. Like my gut had filed a report and was just waiting for me to read it. So I got up and went downstairs. I sat at the dining table in the dark, staring at the little notepad I'd been writing in. The journal I swore I wouldn't turn into an obsession. I thumbed through it. Late nights, strange comments, names she brought up once and never again. Steve. Benjamin. Steve had supposedly helped her with that charity event. Benjamin was someone I remembered hearing once offhand when she said she might collaborate on a future project. My fingers hovered over the laptop. I typed in the name of the conference, Texas Educators Consortium, Houston. The seminar was real, I found the website. The list of partner hotels was short, 2 to be exact. Both had online directories. One of them let me search by guest name. Just for the hell of it, I typed Lawson. There it was. Emily Lawson, 2 guests. I stared at the screen, my pulse thudding in my neck. It was almost midnight. I picked up the phone and dialed the hotel. Told them I was with a courier service, that I needed to confirm delivery for a guest. Gave Emily's name. The desk clerk hesitated, then connected me to her room. It rang once. Then a man answered. Hello? His voice was groggy, like I'd just woken him up. Or like he didn't care who was on the other end. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand for a full minute before it hit me. She wasn't alone. 10 minutes later, I was in the car. It's a 3-hour drive from Austin to Houston. I didn't stop for gas. Didn't turn on the radio. Just drove. I watched the headlights stretch across the empty highway while my thoughts spun in every direction. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the hotel messed up. Maybe the guy was a coworker just crashing. Maybe it was innocent. But I didn't believe that. Not anymore. When I pulled into the parking lot at 4:13 a.m., I didn't feel rage. I felt numb. The hotel was nicer than I expected. Big lobby, too many throw pillows, the kind of place with lemon water in the lobby and jazz music playing too soft to be noticed. I walked up to the front desk and asked to confirm a room number. Emily Lawson, the woman repeated. She tapped on her keyboard. Yes, room 823. Is she expecting you? I didn't answer that. Just nodded like I belonged there. She gave me the number without question. 8th floor. I took the elevator. My hands were shaking, but I didn't feel it until I reached the hallway. The carpet was that weird corporate blue and the air smelled like citrus cleaner and sleep. I didn't knock right away. I stood in front of the door for a full minute. There were 2 wine glasses on the floor beside the room, still wet. One glass had lipstick. The other had fingerprints. Next to them was an empty bottle of Cabernet. Room service tag still attached. I knocked. No answer at first. Then I heard movement. Shuffling. A muffled voice. Then quiet again. Finally, the door opened. It was her. Emily. She was in a hotel robe, hair messy, face pale. She looked like a ghost of the woman I married. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. She didn't speak for a second. Derek, she whispered. What are you doing here? Behind her, I saw movement. A man stepped into view, shirtless, holding a phone. Mid-30s, athletic build. Dark hair. The same guy from the voice on the phone, I knew it instantly. Is everything okay? He asked her. Emily turned halfway, panicked, then looked back at me. This isn't. Don't, I said. My voice cracked, but I held it together. Don't lie. Her mouth opened, then closed. Like she wanted to say something clever, but nothing came out. The man backed up slowly. Like he knew he was part of something he didn't want to be in. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there. For a moment, we all did. Then I turned and walked away. I heard her call my name once, but I didn't look back. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into some alternate version of my life. Like I had stepped through a door into a world I never meant to enter. Outside, the sky was just starting to lighten. Birds chirped. A delivery truck backed into a loading zone. The world kept turning, and somehow I was still in it. I sat in my car for a while, staring at nothing. My hands were on the wheel, but I couldn't remember turning the key. I thought of all the times she'd kissed me goodbye in the mornings. All the days she'd texted, "Miss you" from work. All the dinners we shared in silence while this was happening behind the scenes. It had been real to me, but clearly not to her. I drove back to Austin without stopping. When I got home, the house felt alien. Her slippers by the door. Her coat still hanging on the hook. I didn't touch anything. I went to the bedroom, took out a duffel bag, and packed just enough clothes to last a week. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there. I found a short-term rental online, one of those furnished apartments downtown. Booked it anonymously. Paid for 5 nights. Left the house without a note. I turned off my phone. No messages. No explanations. No apologies. Just silence. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. I don't remember much about the drive back. Just flashes. The white lane markers blurring past. The sun rising too slow. My hands gripping the wheel so tight it felt like the steering column might snap. What I do remember clear as a photograph was what Emily said to me at dinner on our anniversary. That night, after I pretended everything was fine. After I let her sweep Steve under the rug. She had lifted her wine glass, smiled across the candlelight, and said if I had a second chance, I'd do everything differently. Back then, I thought she meant our early days, how we rushed into marriage, how we juggled too much too fast. But now? Now I knew she wasn't talking about our past. She was talking about the version of her life she'd already rewritten. By the time I got back to Austin, it was mid-morning. I drove past our neighborhood without slowing down. Past the little bakery we used to walk to on weekends. Past the gas station where she'd send me for late-night ice cream. Past my own front door. I didn't even look at the house. I just kept going. I found a rental online, 2nd floor of a duplex downtown, temporary housing mostly used by tech workers and out-of-town contractors. Paid up front. No questions asked. I dropped my duffel bag on the unfamiliar hardwood floor, sat down on the edge of the futon, and stared at the wall for maybe an hour. My phone buzzed constantly for the first few hours. First it was Emily, then her again, then home, then her again, voicemails this time. By 3 p.m., she had texted me 12 times and called 7, each one more frantic than the last. Some sounded like begging, some like bargaining, and then one, just one, sounded like a threat. If you don't answer me, I swear, I'll come find you. I turned the phone off. I wasn't running away, not exactly. I was pressing pause on the noise. In those first few days, I didn't talk to anyone except the kids. I called them each evening around dinner. I'd say I was on a work trip, logistics emergency, out-of-town vendor issues. It wasn't a lie I was proud of, but I couldn't tell them the truth. Not yet. Not while I was still trying to survive the sound of her voice in my head. I didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell my brother. Didn't even talk to my best friend, Miles, who would have driven over with 2 beers and 100 questions. I just needed to be alone. The apartment was quiet, sparse. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that smelled like cleaning fluid no matter what I cooked. I didn't hang up any clothes. I didn't touch the TV. I spent most nights on the balcony, staring down at the city lights, thinking about how easy it is to build a life on assumptions. We were the solid couple in our circle, the ones who'd figured it out. That's what people always said, and I believed it, because I wanted to, but now I couldn't stop replaying everything. All the times she smiled just a little too wide when her phone buzzed. The days she'd say, "Don't wait up," without looking me in the eye. The moments where I'd catch her staring at her laptop with this far-off expression like she was somewhere else entirely. I used to think that was just exhaustion. Now I wondered if it was guilt, or worse, longing. And it didn't matter how much I tried to rationalize it. I had seen the robe. I had seen the man. I had seen her expression, shock not at being caught, but at being found out. On the 3rd night in the apartment, I opened my phone again. There were more missed calls. More messages. Some were voice notes, her voice trembling, asking me to come home. Others were simple texts. "Please. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" Then, hours later, "You don't get to ghost me. We have a family." Ghost her? That's what she thought this was? I deleted the thread. I opened my camera roll and scrolled through old photos. Birthday cakes, school plays, Christmas morning in matching pajamas. Her laughing with whipped cream on her nose. Me holding our daughter on my shoulders at the county fair. Every one of them felt like a lie now. A performance I didn't know I was part of. But the worst part? I still missed her. Not the woman I saw in Houston. Not the version of her I couldn't recognize anymore. But the woman I thought I knew. The woman I shared a bed with. The woman who once cried when we brought our newborn son home and whispered, "We made something perfect." That version of her felt like a ghost now. A story I told myself to fall asleep. On the 4th day, I shaved off the beard I'd been growing. It had started as laziness, but I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. The clean-shaven face that stared back looked older than I remembered. Tired in the eyes, but clearer somehow. Sharper. That was the day I started thinking about therapy. I'd never been before. Always thought I didn't need it. That I was emotionally stable. The rock. The provider. But suddenly I wasn't so sure. I didn't feel like a rock anymore. I felt like driftwood. Tossed out into someone else's storm. So I made an appointment. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't even save the name of the clinic in my contacts. Just Wednesday, 10 a.m. on my calendar. I don't know what I expected from therapy. I think part of me assumed it would be someone telling me how to fix the marriage. How to forgive. How to move on. But that's not what it was. It was quieter than that. Harder too. The therapist didn't give me solutions. She asked questions. Gentle ones. Uncomfortable ones. Questions like, when did you stop sharing how you really felt? And what would it mean to choose yourself? I didn't have answers yet, but I started to feel like I wanted them. That was new. By the end of the week, I was sleeping better. Still not great. Still waking up at 3 a.m. some nights, heart racing for no reason. But I wasn't thinking about Emily every second anymore. I wasn't picturing the hotel hallway or hearing her voice on repeat. I started walking more, just blocks at a time, down to the food truck park near the river, back through a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Sometimes I'd sit on a bench and just watch people move around like everything made sense. It was weirdly calming, like I could borrow their normalcy for a little while. I still hadn't made a plan. I didn't know if I wanted a divorce. Didn't know if I wanted to fight for the marriage or set it on fire. I just knew I needed more time, and space, and truth. Because once you see someone clearly, once the curtain drops and the lights come up, you can't unsee it. And whatever came next, I had to face it as the man I was now. Not the one who believed in the perfect story, but the one who lived through its unraveling. 5 days. That's how long I stayed gone before I saw her again. Could have been longer, I wasn't ready. But the kids were starting to ask questions Emily couldn't answer, and I didn't want them dragged into the fog we were living in. I called Nate and Hannah like I'd been doing each night, and Nate finally asked, "When are you coming home?" He didn't say it like an accusation. He said it like a wish, and it hit me harder than anything Emily had said since Houston. So I drove back, didn't pack up the rental, didn't leave a note, just told the owner I'd be gone a few days and that I might come back. I pulled into the driveway right around sunset. The house looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. I stood there for a second before unlocking the door, bracing myself. The air inside was too quiet, too clean. She'd obviously tidied up. That was her move when things were falling apart. Control the surface. The kids came running down the hallway when they heard the door. Hannah leapt into my arms before I even got my shoes off. Nate hugged me without a word, just a long squeeze. I closed my eyes and held on. Emily came out onto the porch behind them, her arms crossed. She didn't say anything at first, just waited. I told the kids to go grab the game we used to play on Friday nights. Something familiar, something they could hold on to. Then it was just her and me, quiet. "You know I saw everything," I said. Emily didn't flinch, didn't defend, didn't pretend. Her shoulders slumped a little, like the weight had finally settled where it belonged. She nodded once. I figured. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just emotionally. Like she'd been running on fumes and finally gave up. I didn't want to yell. I didn't have it in me. She looked down at the porch boards and said softly, "I got lost, Derek. I didn't mean to. I was just angry and tired. You were always working and I was always holding everything together and I felt invisible. Then someone came along who noticed." I swallowed hard. "And what about our kids? Did you think about who's listening to them? Who holds them when you're off at a seminar with Benjamin Cole?" That made her wince. Tears started pooling in her eyes. "I didn't plan any of this," she whispered. "It wasn't supposed to go that far." "It never is," I said. She stepped forward, like she wanted to close the space between us. I stepped back. "You don't get to fix this with a sad look," I told her. "You already used that card." She nodded again. More tears. "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? "It's okay." It wasn't. It still isn't. I walked past her, into the living room, and sat on the edge of the couch while the kids set up the board game. Emily lingered in the doorway like a ghost who hadn't figured out how to move on. And maybe that's exactly what she was now. Half in, half out, stuck between the person she used to be and the stranger I'd found in a hotel hallway. I didn't invite her to join the game. She didn't ask. That night, I slept in the guest room. She didn't knock. I was glad. In the morning, she was already in the kitchen making pancakes. The same way she did every Saturday since the kids were born. She didn't look at me as I poured my coffee. Just asked if Nate still liked blueberries in his. It was bizarre, this choreography we were still pretending to know. Her flipping pancakes, me scrolling headlines on my phone, both of us pretending we weren't standing on the fault line of our entire life. After breakfast, I told the kids I had errands. I didn't. I just needed air. I ended up sitting in my truck in a grocery store parking lot, trying to decide if I hated her or just hated what she'd done. That line had started to blur. That afternoon, she found me in the backyard. I was fixing a loose board on the fence. Something stupid. Something physical. Something that didn't require thinking. "I know this doesn't change anything," she said. "But it wasn't just physical. I mean, it was eventually. But it started before that. The emotional stuff. That was the part that scared me more." I didn't respond. I told myself you wouldn't care. That you wouldn't even notice. Because you were always buried in work. Always tired. Always distant. "So you punished me?" I asked. "No," she said quickly. "No. I was punishing myself, honestly. But I didn't see it that way until after. I wanted to feel like someone saw me again. I looked at her then. Really looked. You know what hurts the most? I said. That you never once gave me the chance to see you. You never told me you felt like this. You just decided I wouldn't get it. She nodded. You're right. That's on me. We stood there in silence. Just wind and the occasional bark from the neighbor's dog. Then she asked, do you want me to leave? And I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know. I wanted space. I wanted honesty. I wanted time to think. But mostly, I wanted her to feel the same ache I'd been carrying since I heard that man's voice on the phone. Not yet, I said finally. But don't mistake that for forgiveness. I don't, she said. I'm not asking for that. I want to do better. I want to show you I can. I didn't have the energy to argue. So I walked back inside. That evening, she handed me a piece of paper, two actually. One was the name of a marriage counselor. The other was a letter. Handwritten. For pages. She didn't ask me to read it. She just set it on the nightstand in the guest room and left the door open. I didn't read it right away. I stared at it for a long time. Thought about burning it. Thought about writing one back. In the end, I turned off the lamp and went to sleep. She'd had her say. Whether I'd let it matter, that was still up in the air. We didn't decide to stay together. Not right away. But we also didn't blow it all up. That surprised both of us. What came next wasn't dramatic. It was awkward breakfasts, brief check-ins, long silences that felt more honest than the words we used to fake. And then therapy. For me first. Then eventually for us. Turns out silence can be protective. But it can also rot everything underneath. I'd spent years bottling up resentment, burying my needs, telling myself I was the stable one. And she, whether out of guilt or self-preservation, started owning what she broke. We made rules. Real ones. No hiding phones. No vague stories. No jokes that twist the truth to avoid it. If we were going to rebuild anything, it had to be from scratch. I focused on the kids. I started driving Nate to Aikido every Tuesday, even stayed to watch. Hannah and I made it a tradition to do Saturday sketches, just crayons and waffles at the dining table, no screens allowed. One night Hannah said, Mom says you're the real hero in the family now. I didn't know what to say. I still don't. But it meant something. Emily apologized often, but differently now. Less about fixing, more about understanding. She didn't push. Just showed up. Showed effort. That mattered more than any grand gesture ever could. Did I forgive her? Not completely. But I started to forgive myself for not seeing, not asking, not saying what I needed. That's something I never realized I'd been doing too. It's been 6 months. We live separately now. Her idea, actually. Said she wanted to earn back trust with actions, not words. And to her credit, she stuck to that. We do dinners together with the kids, co-parent like teammates, not enemies. They're doing better. They smile more now. Laugh more easily. The air in our homes feels breathable again. As for me, I've changed. I don't walk on eggshells anymore. I speak up. I set boundaries. I know what I need and I'm not afraid to ask for it. Recently, we went to a neighborhood cookout. Some casual thing, folding chairs and paper plates. A neighbor asked who organized our upcoming trip to California. Without hesitation, Emily pointed at me and said, Derek. He can organize anything even if he hides behind the little things. It wasn't a dig. It was respect. That was the thing. We didn't go back to what we were. We couldn't. But we learned how to live with what was broken and maybe even build something else with the pieces. Not perfect, but honest. And that I've learned is more valuable than any illusion of forever. Sometimes leaving isn't weakness. It's the moment you finally show up for yourself. And I did. I still am.